Today we're going to discuss, we have StakeDAO with us, with Hubert, who is going to be, we're going to be talking about the SDT boost and StakeDAO a bit more in general. You'll see there's quite a few intricacies and very cool stuff that can be done with it. We're doing this because we just released the Warden boost for StakeDAO, which I think is going to be an extremely interesting twist to it. For the record, there's almost been as many boost bots already on StakeDAO in the past with the StakeDAO in the past 7 days than there's been in the past maybe 3 months with CRV. I think the use case is much more obvious on boost. We're going to keep refining it, but it's going to be very interesting. And the goal of this Twitter space will be to highlight this a bit more. Hubert, do you want to introduce yourself and very quickly?
Yes, sure. First, thank you very much, Vic, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, so I'm Hubert. I am working on the product side of things for StakeDAO as a core contributor. And yeah, so been there for the last 2 years. And yes, is it should I introduce also StakeDAO as a protocol?
Yeah, well, most people know me, so I don't think I can maybe skip the intro for me. I'm one of the co-founders of Paladin, and yeah, let's delve right into StakeDAO and liquid lockers in general.
Okay, yes. So basically, StakeDAO has been there since early 2021. Initially, it started as a protocol with the objective to provide a decentralized solution for retail investors who don't know much about blockchain, etc., to benefit from whatever they can benefit from in DeFi, so yield, portfolio management, swap, etc., etc. Since, let's say, late 2021, we shifted a bit the product. We developed a new product which is called the Liquid Lockers, which was live at the end of Q1 2022, and which is basically leveraging all the know-how that we had accumulated with regards to the governance wars that have been taking place during the better part of 2021 and 2022, and using this to build a very advanced product for which is targeting advanced users who want to get very good yields or have a very good governance power on certain key protocols. So that's the Liquid Lockers. And so basically it's built on top of any protocol with the tokenomics, which are basically the tokenomics introduced by Curve, but which have been reproduced by many protocols, including ourselves. And so yes, we've shipped this Liquid Lockers, which can be built on any of those tokens, allow users who want yield to have some boosted yield here. So basically better yield than using those protocols through StakeDAO than using directly the protocol. So that's on the LP side, and also it allows you to extract the full value on your governance token. So also, as I mentioned, we've introduced veSDT, which is where it becomes interesting for Paladin. So basically, what's new with so SDT is the StakeDAO token. Our tokenomics now are similar to the Curve ones, let's say. So you can lock this SDT, and it provides boost on your utilization of the various strategies. And it also gives you the possibility to direct SDT inflation. But the, kind of innovation we brought is that this veSDT also provides boost on the voting power of governance tokens. And that's like, I think it's the only V token where you have this kind of external use case. So not a use case which is purely based on the inflation of the token. And so exiting a bit this kind of what people could say Ponzinomics or whatever, right? veSDT has its own use case, which is boosting governance power now. And that's where Paladin is particularly interesting for veSDT. And as Fig mentioned, users have already started to understand it. So basically, by renting some veSDT boost, you can it's a bit like buying some voting power on various platforms, but maybe we can keep that for later. So, sorry if it was a bit a messy introduction. Fig, I don't know if you want to add anything. Yes.
Oh, it seems I switch accounts. Twitter Space always has a problem with me. My bad, guys. Okay, so basically, that's a very complete answer. Thank you. What we've been seeing, I think, and what's interesting around the veSDT and the lockers in general, maybe to recap a bit just very quickly, the protocols that are currently compatible with the liquid lockers are CRV, BAL, Angle, Wi-Fi, and AP-Wine, right? Have you one?
And Flax, and we also have Black.
Oh yes, of course. My bad. So there's a total of 6 lockers, and well, one of the reasons why this is very interesting is that we share the same conviction that there's going to be value around governance, and building around these values are interesting because it's going to enable different stakeholders to capture much more value than they currently can right now, and a lot of value that they're losing right now is done through apathy, right? From what I understand around the lockers, and my understanding is, of course, never perfect, which is why we have these calls, right? It basically creates a way not just to re-equilibrate all of the market, but also enables people to enjoy the full potential of the lockers, right? Because if someone doesn't sell or use their voting power, it basically goes to the people who are active, right? It's real liquid democracy in a sense.
Yes, so I think it's a good point to say. Also, so basically the reason we built those lockers is that we were seeing some kind of centralization issues on some protocols that could be a risk for the good of the ecosystem. And what we brought, which is kind of new with the liquid lockers, is that the governance token wrappers that we issue keep their governance power. So in that way, us as StakeDAO contributors, people who have like a lot of SDT, I don't know, or even like early contributors who got allocation or this kind of stuff, they don't get free voting power, right? They actually would need to buy some CRV and lock it if they want to be active in the CRV governance, right? And same for balancer, etc. So I think this is like something which is quite interesting because what you've seen is that the other solution for wrappers is to have like an interesting say, for example, the convex model is that you have some yield if you lock your CRV for CVX CRV, and in exchange you give your voting power to CVX. It's the same for Aura, and this is kind of like it's good, but it's good that it doesn't take too much power for the underlying protocol, because as I said, like the early contributors who have a lot of Aura or a lot of CVX can then have like an extremely high power over the underlying protocol without having bought any single token, right? So that's kind of the problematic we try to solve. And I think it's working because what you can see right now is that the centralization, say, factor of those underlying protocol is going down. So the biggest holders share is going down, which is reversing the trend that has been going on for the past few months. So it's actually very positive, I think. I think it's yeah, it relates to your question, right?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I want to move on to another subject, which is basically the next net that we talked about, the specificities of veSDT, which is basically boosting your underlying liquid voting power. I want to talk about the StakeDAO wars. There's a website that I love that's called DeFi Wars that basically looks at all of the tokens that have been taking V token tokenomics or similar and adds them in what they call token wars. So if you look into the list, quite far up, you have the StakeDAO wars. I would like to understand for you how you envision the StakeDAO wars. Why would someone lock in SDT? We talked about it a bit before, but maybe there's other reasons. And what does it imply for you guys? What do you think where this is going to go? And where do you hope this will go?
This is a very good question. It's interesting, this StakeDAO Wars page, because it gives you a bit of a view of every protocol and also like big users who have found that it was useful to lock SDT. So it's kind of interesting. I wouldn't call it a war though, because it would be a war if all those protocols were competing against each other for like liquidity direction, for example. But it's not so much the case, because the SDT inflation per se is pretty low, and what people are looking for is not the power over directing SDT inflation. It's rather the possibility to boost their values like CRV or balancer or Frax position, etc. So if I were the creator of DeFi Wars, I would actually include those into the values, SDCRV, the CRV wars. I would include the SDCRV holders with their VSDT boost or something like that. It would be more relevant, in my opinion.
So I agree with you. We also have to take into account that the guys who are doing this are basically doing this on the side. And I personally did it, and I highly advise anyone who appreciates this kind of website to actually donate, because in this kind of markets like the ones we have, we need to keep rewarding the projects that are contributing at least a bit to give more clarity around the apps. It's probably the same case with the stake guys, but we don't have the time to build everything ourselves. So we highly appreciate when there's community initiatives like these.
It's a super good site. We've donated as well, but would encourage anyone to also donate. And I mean, the guy is super cool. I think it's just like an evolution that can be done later. Because also, like, if you look in the CRV wars, you see, StakeDAO has let's say 25 million votes or 24 million votes. Wow, it's huge. But actually, it's not true. Like, we don't have 24 million votes. It's we have like StakeDAO as the multi-sig has like something like 3 million votes or something, and the rest is the users who just chose to vote through SDCRV than directly through VCRV. So I think just like a precision to be done on the SDCRV page, on the VCRV page, VBAL page, etc.
I think in general it's hard to it's difficult to confuse when you have a locker, for example, like you guys have, and then when the DAO has assets, because it's easy to confuse the protocol with the actual organization that's structuring the project, right?
Yeah, it's difficult, and it's even more difficult for like other kind of wrappers. Like, for example, because it needs to be specific for all wrappers, right? Like, for example, Yearn keeps all the voting power. So what you can see on DeFi Wars is actually correct, right? for convex, you would need to split it between the big VLC VX holders, actually, if you want to be very precise. But then it's even more complex because on convex, you have some rules about voting, which make every single vote more efficient than its sole backing, right? Like if quorum is not reached, or if quorum is reached, it's a massive game changer for the underlying vote, even if it's only like a few votes that can do the difference. You see my point? So actually, there's like perfect solution for this DeFi war stuff. It's a very tricky matter.
In the end, it's all about the fact that you can make data mean anything. It's just about presentation and design choices, which is something we're seeing a lot of. And I highly advise everyone to be careful because the market has been going green for the past 3 days. It doesn't mean it's going to be green for the next 2 years. So there's probably some people with deep pockets who are trying to use exit liquidity. Do not fall for the next GTX or something like that, please. So do you want to add something? If not, I was going to go over the next question.
Oh, please go on.
So we've discussed a bit about Boost, or how they could be used. Do you want maybe to give us an example? Or maybe I can discuss about one we've done, because we've also been playing around. Paladin has some SDCRV, and what we've done is that we've basically bought the equivalent of 30,000 SDT Boost over 2 weeks. And the idea was to see how much we could get. And more correctly, it's 34,000 veSDT Boost that we bought over 2 weeks. And it gives us, which is theoretically the maximum boost, the 60% boost over our CRV, which means that for what's the equivalent of, I think it cost us 104 SDT, if I'm not wrong. So I am not sure how much SDT costs, but for 104 SDT, we got for 2 rounds of CRV. How much? Sorry?
104 is below $40.
Okay, so for roughly $30, we got the equivalent of a 30,000 CRV boost over 2 weeks. So that's basically what we did, and we can keep doing it. We think this is interesting because it means that it helps align people who have SDT to basically keep on locking, and people who lock to basically get SDT. So it's about smart design, as you mentioned. It's using internal and external resources without emissions to basically be able to create more use case and to keep the people using the product as a flywheel. I think this is really cool, guys. Do you want to maybe add something or show maybe another example? Maybe I've missed something.
Yeah. I can tell you about like other examples, because I think the difficulty with veSDT Boost, it's not like VCRV Boost, or I mean it's like VCRV Boost, but it's not like bribes, right? Because one vote that you buy, whomever you are will give you the same amount of liquidity directed, right? But for Boost, it's very different because it depends on each user's position. So before Paladin launched this veSDT Boost market, there was already a market for veSDT Boost, which was OTC, and so the idea about this OTC market was to try to target the whales which use a maximum of different blockers to maximize the utilization of the veSDT Boost, right? So, for example, some whales who were using both SDCRV and SDBAL were buying some boost because it would boost, like for the same veSDT boost both your SDCRV voting power and the SDBAL voting power, right? And as we have like some whales who have this, plus also share in some strategies, plus also some FXS and Angle voting power, in the end, all of those tokens have their own bribe market. So one veSDT can boost all of them. So then you can, I mean, this increases the value of veSDT, right? So veSDT boost. So that's a bit a challenge for you guys to create a market which has for a token which has for a use case which has like different value for every users, but that's why I think the order book model is kind of the best model one can hype. And yes, I mean the what we saw in the OTC market is that most of the value was still coming from the CRV boost, but also, like, I would say 20% would come also from the VBAL boost, and then a bit more from strategies and FXS, etc. So, but it can lead to some veSDT very expensive, let's say, veSDT price that would still be profitable for big waves. I'm not sure if I'm clear.
No, I think what's interesting is that if there are some very profitable times, we like to talk a lot about governance arbitrage at Paladin. If you look, for example, at the way CRV pumped compared to all the other tokens, because it has pumped much more, it means that there's a good chance bribes will be significantly cheaper this round. The next week than they are. So you can use this opportunity. It can happen on any other token, and basically get your incentives. Basically boost your voting power by getting veSDT boost, and you're going to get 30, 50, 60% extra boosting power just for this specific time. The advantage that you're going to have with this is that you're basically getting the maximum amount of emissions. That's interesting for a DAO that's looking to do this instead of bribing. On the other side, you can have another optic, is that if there's a trend reversal and suddenly bribes are extremely profitable for any reason, for example, there's a huge number of bribes compared to the actual number of emissions, you can boost yourself and collect as many bribes as possible, right? So I guess what's interesting is that you can do a broad strategy arbitrage that's not just global to CRV, which we talked about, but that's true for any other platform as long as you have SD lock tokens as well. SD, how do you call them? The SD tokens in general?
SD tokens, yeah. SD tokens are the liquid wrappers of locked tokens.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
SD FXS, etc.
Okay, Hubert, do you want to add something, or should we move on to the AMA? I don't know if
on what you said. I just like to understand. I mean, for me, if CRV goes up, bribes go up, right? CRV bribes are directly correlated to the value of incentive they are directed, right? So I would expect next week to be higher in terms of bribe price.
Well, that's just maybe I would say a different understanding. But for me, bribes are reflexive in the sense that they react to the CRV price. Because let's say everyone is spending $1,000 per emissions to buy emissions every week, and just CRV prices pumps up, means that it will bring more yield to buy the CRV, but maybe everyone had a specific budget and they're still going to pay for the same number of tokens. They're still going to pay, for the same budget. So whatever the bribe system is used, if you're using exactly the same amount of money and you get exactly the same amount of votes, which means if there's no new briber, I would guess the APR goes down. It's just the total dollar doesn't change.
APR could go down.
Yes, that's what I meant. My bad.
But more because of a denominator effect. Because like the biggest bribes are actually curved, which bribes in CRV, and the CRV amount doesn't change, so that the APR doesn't change. And the second biggest would be probably convex via Votium, and CVX is also correlated to CRV. So I would say broadly, like, the biggest bribes wouldn't move, but you're right, if due to this denominator effect, like the other bribes could go down indeed.
Yep. So that was a small alpha on bribes, guys. Do you have any questions? We're maybe going to let the floor for people who have questions around vBoost. Anyone? if it's usually the case. What we see on Twitter Spaces, that there's usually one or two questions that show up, but usually the people then come into the Discord and they ask for the questions that they could have asked during the presentation. People are shy. If people want to ask this kind of question, where should they go to ask these questions to StakeDAO?
They should go to ideally the Telegram, where we are a bit more of Telegram fans than Discord, but we also have the Discord, so they can come either to the Discord or the Telegram.
Okay, well, we're the opposite, guys. We're a lot on Discord. We're a bit less fan of Telegram, but that's where you can reach us if you want. If you want to buy Boost, it's going to be on app.warden.that Boost, if I'm not mistaken. And if you want to lock tokens and start doing this, you can go on lockers.stakedao.org, and that's where the magic will start happening. Thank you very much for showing up, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day / evening, depending on where you are, and see you very soon.
And thanks a lot, Felix, for having me, and see you guys.
Yeah, pleasure.